So the Los Angeles Lakers have knocked off the defending champion Golden State Warriors in a convincing Game 6 victory. The Lakers shut down the Warriors guards. Stephen Curry was 11 for 28, Klay Thompson was 3 for 19, and Jordan Poole was just 3 for 10 from the field. On the Lakers side, LeBron James had the best game of this year's playoffs. He dropped 30 points, had 9 rebounds, 9 assists, and shot 10 of 14 from the field. Austin Reeves pitched in 23 points, D'Lo had 19 points of his own, and Anthony Davis was doing it all, pitching in 17 points, 20 rebounds, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. And now the Lakers are moving on, but we'll talk more about the Lakers run in another video. Today's video, we got to focus on the Warriors and what's going to happen with their future. I think this dynasty is over, man. And having the same roster that you essentially had last year, you have to ask, what happened? Now, you know it's bad when your head coach calls you out in the press conference. Steve Kerr didn't really hold back on the team in after-game interviews, and he did not believe that this team was a championship-level team. Because if they were, they'd be moving on right now, and he's right. This year's Warriors team had so many flaws. Defensively, this team just wasn't that good all year. They had a defensive rating of 113.4, which was 14th in the league. Last year, their defensive rating was second best in NBA at 106.6. In fact, if you look back in NBA history, a team has only won a championship with a defensive rating ranked 11th or lower just 3 times since 1981. Those 3 teams are the 2018 Warriors, who had Stephen Curry, Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green, the 2001 Lakers, who had Shaq and Kobe, and the 1995 Rockets. You can score as many points as you want to score, but if you can't get any stops, you aren't going to win many games. And then another big thing was their road record. It was abysmal this year. They were 11-30 on the road compared to 33-8 in the Chase Center. And to just show you how bad that is, their home versus away record is the difference from them playing like the 2016 Spurs to playing like the current day Spurs. And then in the playoffs, their road woes just didn't really change. They lost all 3 road games they played against the Warriors, and then they lost 2 road games against the Kings. You pair those 2 things up with players missing time and regression in how players play, and that just overall championship feel not really being there, you can see why this team had faltered. So now the biggest question revolving the Golden State Warriors is, what's next? Because there are a ton of questions to answer. The biggest question you have to ask outside of what's going to happen with certain players is, what's going to happen with Bob Myers, as he's up for a new contract at the season's end? He was hired as a general manager for this team in 2011 and built the dynasty that we see today. Key trades, key draft choices, different signings. I mean, most of these moves were made because of him, and if he decides to leave, that's yet another burden on the Warriors. So now when we get into the talk about players, it's going to be a lot of moving parts this offseason. I'm really interested to see what this team does to not only retool this roster, but how they can do it effectively and efficiently, considering the new CBA really penalizes teams for going above that tax line. Right now, the biggest player decision is going to be on Draymond Green and what he'll decide to do, or what the team will decide to do with him in this offseason. Draymond Green is set to become a free agent, and I'm very sure that he wants to get paid. It's no denying Draymond's impact on the Warriors' success, even as he enters the twilight of his career. His defense, his playmaking, and his versatility are all very much needed for this Warriors team. But with Stephen Curry's contract and Klay Thompson's contract and Andrew Wiggins' contract and Jordan Poole's contract, where is the money going to come from? You really can't afford to lose Draymond if you want to continue to compete for championships, but the only way I think you can keep him is that if you trade one of the 4 biggest contracts on the team. We'll get more into that a little later. You drafted Jonathan Kuminga 2 seasons ago, but you haven't really given him a real shot to showcase his true talents. And looking at this offseason, there are a couple contending teams, or like borderline contending teams, that could throw a nice contract at Draymond, make things real interesting. Next, we have to talk about Klay Thompson, who's going into the last year of his contract. Now, Klay Thompson is obviously not the same player that he was prior to his injuries. I mean, he's lost his burst, his first step just isn't there anymore. The defense just isn't up to par as to what it was a couple seasons back, and he's someone that I believe, with his stature, is gonna want a lot of money. Now, the Warriors and Klay Thompson are gonna have to sit down and have that talk, because the contract that he's gonna ask for is not what he's going to be worth. I feel like if the Warriors have to get rid of one piece from their core, it should be Klay Thompson. Then you have Kevon Looney, who's up for an extension, but I think he's as good as gone, because a team is going to throw a big bag at him, and I don't think the Warriors can match whatever contract a team gives him. Now, we got to talk about trades. And the biggest trade discussion surrounding a player has been Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole was awful in this year's NBA playoffs. I mean, if you look at his statistics from this season compared to last season's playoffs, it's literally night and day. And personally, I think he might have just fell into bad habits. It was a lot of inefficient shots, a lot of over dribbling, just a lot of me play instead of team play. He tries too hard to be flashy, and like, you just aren't really gonna win many basketball games doing so. But I feel like all the Jordan Poole trade talks are real premature. Unless you're getting a star player, Jordan Poole is only 23 years old and has shown the ability to be a 20-point per game scorer in this league. And trading him right now doesn't make sense, as I would assume his trade value is at a low point. Not a lot of teams are going to want to give up a lot for a guy who just stunk it up in the playoffs. Personally, I wouldn't trade him. I could see why people would want to, but I feel like we got to slow down on the Jordan Poole trade talks. This team has other assets like Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody to use in trades to get other pieces, but can you win with that in mind, with the regression on the team, with the thought of the new CBA coming to effect very soon? They cannot afford to go above the tax line because the penalty of doing so is just too big. So would making a trade to try and compete to get another star be smart, considering that that star player is going to be another player that is yet again making max money? I just don't think so. This window might be closed, and I don't know if it's worth gutting your roster with so many issues to fix to get that one piece that might put you back into championship contention. With all of that in mind, I think this dynasty is over. Unless, of course, like Kevin Durant comes back to town, but God, man, I hope that does not happen.